Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Saturday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's 4 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, this video, it would be better if I did this video in a couple months, like come around Father's Day, but I'm going to do today because I really want to talk about this. I haven't talked about what I'm going to talk about. It happened 50 years ago, and I'm kind of afraid if I don't talk about it today, I'll never talk about it. The reason I came up with this, the reason I remember this specific incident, it's a very strong memory I have from 50 years ago when I was 8 years old. The reason I remembered it is I started reading this book. I know this is backwards. Please forgive me. The book Fever. I just started reading this, and it's from 2016, and it's about a plague, fever that takes over, wipes out everybody on Earth almost. And this is before COVID. Too. It's kind of crazy how this guy, it kind of predicted, well, not predicted, but anyway, it's a father and a 13-year-old son. And the father gets hurt. Like I said, I'm just at the beginning of the book, and the father gets hurt. And it's written from the 13-year-old boy's point of view. And he's really worried. He's talking about, looking at his father, worried that his father's going to pass away and what's going to happen to him. And I started remembering that this is a vivid memory I have from when I was 8 years old. My father died of terminal brain cancer when I was 9 years old. I watched him wither away. He was gone in 6 months when he first started getting double vision. 6 months later, he passed away, and it was horrible watching him wither away in a hospital bed. It got to the point where he didn't even remember my name. He didn't know, I was an 9-year-old boy, and my father didn't know who I was. And he withered away. One of the worst memories I have is they had him in rehab, and he was weaving baskets. I remember my father being the park ranger, the game warden, the top guy at the state park where I lived. I was very proud, and then I look at him and they have him weaving baskets, and it made me so angry. Okay, so this was probably about a year before he passed away. Like I said, we lived at a park, and there was a state park, and there was a big pond. It's called Black Rock Lake in Thomaston, Connecticut, and my father was the park ranger. We lived in the park house, the state house inside the park. And it was the beginning of fishing season. My father was an avid fisherman, hunter, and whatnot. And he took me fishing one morning. And it was a cloudy, rainy morning, probably just after fishing season had started. And we were walking away from the pond. We were walking up a trail. Like I said, I was 8 years old at this point. And I remember my father wearing green waders, like, those rubber pants you wear, like the boots, the rubber, I'm not sure exactly because it's a lake. I thought usually, I was thinking this morning, you usually wear those in a river for river fish. I'm not very familiar. I don't fish. Anyway, he's wearing these waders, and they have like, the suspenders over his arms. And I'm walking behind him, and he's walking up the trail. And one of the suspender straps falls off his arm as he's walking, and he doesn't see, I'm walking behind him, and I see this. And he doesn't seem to notice. He keeps walking, and he's in front of me. So I kind of run up, I kind of get right behind him, and I take the strap and I put it back where it's supposed to, where it belongs, because he didn't seem to notice. His strap was falling off. His waders were getting loose, So I fix it, and I fall back, and it falls off again. And I run back up, I put it back. I take his suspender strap and I put it back up. And this happens about 3 times. And that night, I remember laying in bed that night, and I actually started tearing up. I started crying in bed, and this is before he ever got sick. And I don't know how to explain this. At that moment, watching just his strap fall off his arm, made me realize, up until that point, I never thought about my father passing away. I never looked at him, he was Superman. He was always going to be there. He was always going to protect the family. Nothing could harm him. Nothing could hurt him. He was my father. He was Superman. And that's when it was all crushed, just by that strap, walking behind him and him not noticing or not fixing the strap. and me running up and trying to fix it. You know, something about that incident, I started crying, and I realized that my father was a human being, that he was fallible, that eventually I would lose him. I don't know if you guys can understand what I'm saying, but it was just something about the strap falling off his arm. Like I said, and this was before he ever got sick. And, sure enough, not even, I don't know if it was, I wouldn't go as far to call it as a premonition. But, it's one of the memories, like I said, 50 years ago, and I still remember this vividly, and I remember laying in bed that night and just feeling so sad. And, realizing that my father was a human being, just like anybody else. And eventually I was going to lose him. That there were things that happened to him just like everybody else. There was defects, and, he was a human being. I hope this makes some sense. It's still a very strong memory in my head. I don't know if it was a premonition. I don't know if I learned it, just a very strong. If you have a son, or, you lost your father, maybe you could relate to this. Maybe not. All right. I'll be back later. I got more videos coming up today, you guys. Have a good Saturday.